Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the show where a real statistics professor and his friends give you sports betting tips. I am your host, Professor Sides. That's my actual job title and last name, which is part of the reason why the mathematical model that I built to predict various sports outcomes is named Sideline. This college basketball episode covers select games scheduled to be played on Tuesday, December 27th, 2022. You should check out the webpage on the banner. It's www.pickswiththeprofessor.com/new for some explanations, goals, full recommendations on wager scaling, and community rules. As always, remember, there are no locks in gambling, so what Sideline provides are loves, likes, and leans. It is A, B, and C grades to indicate its confidence level with respect to scaling wagers. As outlined in more detail on that webpage, I recommend playing the A grade plays at 1 unit, plays given here at half unit or an additional half unit. Though the A plus play of the day gets an extra full unit because it's one that will count for both myself and my co-host. There are also picks given out on the website and Patreon and plays of the day in the Discord chat that I also recommend an extra half unit. The compilation of those recommended results can be found both on BetStamp and in the Google Sheet. All those linked in the show description. The Google Sheet also contains a full set of projections and picks on every single game. And for early access to those picks and projections, hit at Patreon. That link's in the crawler below. It's also where you can access the Discord chat, which is the best place to get questions answered about these or other games. But as always, take what you like and leave the rest. Lastly, please understand that good and bad variance will occur. So as much as we'd like to say we'll be profitable each and every day, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. Jake, last week was maybe the highest variance week I can remember. I think we had, and you were on for part of them. One of them was just myself. One of them was, I think Joe was on, but like one day it was like 8-2, and the next day it was like 2-8, and then one day it was like 3-6. The next day it was like 4-1. It just was all over the map. And we talk about good and bad variance, and you see it sometimes in the game, you see it sometimes in a day, you see it sometimes in a week. Last week I feel like was just. And it was nice to bounce back, but it's like that's not really predictive. Sometimes you can have 2 good days in a row, 2 bad days in a row, that sort of thing. But it was at least nice that every bad day at least was followed up with a good day on the next one, right?
Yeah, that's nice. I mean, we really felt the pain of the 3-ball on that. Like there were some games that it just, if it wasn't for the 3-ball, we wouldn't have covered it. And there was, in the same way, the 3-ball killed us on the other end. It was just wild how ping-pongy that was.
Yeah, and that's the one loss that we suffered on Christmas Day was like that with Washington State, just getting destroyed on the 3-ball. Otherwise, if you plug in the season averages, if they shoot the same percent, whatever, Washington State wins that by almost double digits. And the 3-ball happened, and I've talked about that before on shows. So if you're new, something to think about. If not, they say it takes 7 times for something to sink in, right? But that's just how college basketball goes. It's like about half-ish. I don't have the exact date, I don't really exact, but it feels like about half the games are decided by one team shoots the 3-ball really well, and the other one doesn't. To an extent you can't really predict. Like that Utah State-Washington State game. If you came up and said, I predict that Utah State's going to win because they're going to shoot 60% from 3 and Washington State's going to shoot like 15% or whatever the numbers were, I would be like, that's a really bad projection system because while that could happen, that's not what you expect to happen, right? And about half the game, something like that happens, and you just chalk it up, and it's like sometimes you're on the right side, sometimes you're on the wrong side. You just move on. It's the other half. I feel like that's where you got to really make your hay. When that doesn't swing it one way or the other, you got to really then win those games where that's at least not a factor. Because when the 3-ball is a factor in college basketball, it just whatever happens, and it's just you're there for the ride, and you hope you're on the right side. But if not, it just is what it is. There's nothing you can do about it, right?
Yeah, especially the Utah State team. They went from hitting everything in one game, but the game before that, they couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. And so just like the variance in that one team is enough to drive you crazy if you're trying to base everything off what the 3-ball is going to do.
Yeah, they've definitely been of late a real hot and cold team, and like I said, so much of it's about the 3-ball. It's always more fun when that doesn't happen because then at least you feel like the handicap, the angles, everything that you look into, all the research you do matters, right? On a game like that, it doesn't really matter. They get hot, it is what it is. They can't shoot, it is what it is, and that's how Utah State's games have been. It's like they've done really well or really bad lately, just based off of that, and it's almost like I said, like nothing else even matters, and it's at least much more fun when they shoot closer to their season average. They're a good 3-point shooting team, and I think that's what makes it all the more surprising in the game before that when they lost to SMU, when they didn't hit at all, because they're a pretty good shooting team, and when they have that cold night like that, it's again there's just nothing you could do, and they lost to SMU, who of course lost on their own heartbreaking 3. That Hawaii game with SMU was kind of a boring game. I nailed the under, was never really in doubt other than maybe overtime. But as boring as that game was, the last minute made up for it. That last minute was a lot of fun.
That was nuts. And then the free throw, the and one, and they're
Oh,
going back and adding the time left. I was like, golly, I hope this free throw's not important to somebody.
yeah, I said it at the time. I was like, I'm pretty sure I saw the ref's arm up. I think that was a foul. And I was like, it doesn't really matter though. Like, there's no time left. And I was like, unless maybe like somebody teased Hawaii to like -1 and that free throw matters or something. But I was like, there's not many people where that free throw matters. Thankfully, it wasn't like at the spread or something where it really would have mattered for almost all people. But I was sitting there, I was like, I hope that doesn't matter to anybody out there because that was a wild situation. And then all of a sudden adding time and the time, that was just a weird ending, which I guess, I don't know. I wasn't doing anything else at that time of the night. So watching that was the most entertaining thing that could happen. The NFL game that was happening at the same time was boring as could be. So it wasn't like there was anything else to distract me.
Yeah, no, that was crazy. I'm still amazed that the coach got the timeout off in 0.3 seconds. Like, I want to see the replay on that. But
yeah, I do think it was a great job by that guy. If he was trying to miss that, you want to miss that because you wanted to force that timeout. Had he made it, then the clock doesn't start. They can launch it down the court, do the catch call timeout, and inbound a lot closer, and then you have a whole different setup. So I don't know if he was trying to miss it or not, but it worked out for him. Congrats to Wyatt. It was a lot of fun. It's always fun to see the home team win like that. The crowd was going wild. So that was a lot of fun. We got 5 games here for your Tuesday. Before we get to those, some reminders. Please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Also, if you aren't yet, please consider subscribing or following. It's free. And if you turn on notifications, you won't miss any of the college basketball, MLB, or college football content that this channel provides. I've already mentioned that Patreon, but check it out if you haven't yet. Lots of great benefits you found over there above and beyond what we do here. Lots of extra picks, lots of extra discussion, lots of early access to things, ad-free shows if that's something that interests you. Lots of goodies over there. Membership starts at just $3 per month, www.patreon.com/pickswiththeprofessor. But even if you're not there, we're still thrilled to have you here. Let's get to it. All lines courtesy of BetOnline. Sign up link in the show description. Current as the time of this recording, it is around noon on Monday. Getting this one out to you early with only 5 games and no games on Monday. So the sports books thankfully have lines out nice and early for us. 3 A grade plays of the 5. We had 5 games on Christmas Day, and 2 of them got to A grades. We got 3 of them here for you. The A+ play of the day, the best of all the A grades that we could find for you here. 7 p.m. Central. It's a large number, but South Carolina State at Texas Tech -28. Sideline says it should be 29.3, and it's just has underestimated a little bit how good Texas Tech has been. Both of these teams had kind of mixed results with regards to the spread, but South Carolina State plays fast and plays no defense, and that's the exact recipe you want. You don't really want to lay a number like this very often, but if you're laying a number like this, that's kind of the exact recipe I think you want. Team that's going to go recklessly fast and a team that can't play defense, that's going to allow them to give up a lot of points. That's what we're going to need here for Tech to get out, hopefully by about 40 points midway through the second half, and then we can just kind of coast and say we don't really care what happens. Jake, I'm hoping that you can come up with some evidence. I'm really hoping. I have no idea what you're about to say. I'm hoping it's something like South Carolina State has played this team, and this team, and they've lost by 40 in all of them. Or Tech has played these bad teams and won by 40. I'm hoping it's something like that. That'll make me feel a little bit better about laying 28 with Tech. So I'll let you tell us why you like Texas Tech -28 so much.
Like, the fact that South Carolina State has 2 wins on the year is just mind blowing. They're that kind of bad. They've got the shortest length of possession on defense out of anyone because they just don't guard anybody. Teams have scored 100+ against them this year 3 times, and they've held teams under 80 3 times. So there's just not a lot of defense happening here. And one of those teams was Longwood, the offensive firepower juggernaut of Longwood. He got 106 on them. Wow. Texas Tech in their last 2 games has been 100+. They're not going to have a problem here. This is the best defense this South Carolina State team will see all year probably. It's just. And honestly, probably one of the better offenses they have. I know they lost to Kentucky pretty big. Kentucky, you can argue offensively with Texas Tech, but it's not. You're splitting hairs there. They haven't played a game in almost a week, and TCU next for Texas Tech. It's a little worrisome, but I think this game looks a lot like that Houston Christian game where they just dog walk this team the whole time, and it's not even close. 30, 40 points shouldn't be hard to do for this team.
Yeah, South Carolina State allowing 104 to Longwood is just quite a feat, I guess. But kind of like you said, they don't play good defense, and Tech actually playing at about an average pace so far this year. That's a little bit surprising. We're used to them playing a little bit slower, relying on that defense. Still a very good defense, but a pretty good offense. And if they're not going to just hold the ball, there will be a lot of possessions in this game because South Carolina State's lack of guarding is going to allow Tech to have good looks early in the shot clock. And their offense is good enough they should take them. They're not going to just pull back and hold, North Texas, Charlotte, Virginia, they might pull back and hold out and just say, I know you're giving us a good look, but we're going to kill another 10 seconds off the shot clock. But Tech hasn't really done that this year. They've actually, like you said, put up 100 points a few times. And if they're putting up 100 here, I don't see South Carolina State getting to 70. With all the extra possessions, it shouldn't matter. Their offense isn't that good, and Tech's defense is good enough to shut them down. So we're going to lay the 28 there with Texas Tech.
Yeah, I think there's going to be several runs there where South Carolina State barely gets across half court, throws it away, and we're seeing a Showtime dunk on the other end for Texas Tech.
That would be a lot of fun. Who doesn't want to see that? Which will take us to the best of the rest of the A plays. I've got one here that I'm going to give for you. The biggest edge on the board, according to the model, Northwestern State, plus 17 at Texas A&M. The model thinks this should be a little bit under 15. Northwestern State, y'all probably heard me talk about them a few times. A team we've been on all season long. We backed them in every single game they've played, all 11 at the Division I level. They played one Division II game, and they've gone 9-2 for us against the spread. So it's been a great a run for us backing them, and I don't really see why that should change. A&M's had very mixed results. They've been kind of up and down, up and down. A&M feels like a little bit like a team that every time you kind of think you figured them out, they kind of zig and zag against you. I'm not really worried about A&M. What I'm really worried about is Northwestern State, and I still don't think the number has caught up to them. They're a pretty solid team. I think they can hang around, be pesky, lose this game by something like 12, and that should get us the cover. You have a situation where if A&M was going to be able to run away from a team, they had a great chance, for instance, last week and couldn't do it. And the Northwestern State is the same sort of thing. They can just hang around. They've been good to us all season. So we're going to grab 17 points with them as the best of the rest of the A plays.
Yeah. This Texas A&M team is just not playing well right now, losing 3 of their last 4, including a loss at home to Wofford in their last time out. They're just not getting enough offense out of guys not named Wade Taylor. Coleman, who was supposed to be pretty good this year and kind of really help him out, can't figure out how to be a double-digit scorer. They're not shooting the 3 ball very well. Defensively, they're playing okay, but they're not doing a great job of rebounding or guarding the 3-point arc, but forcing a bunch of turnovers, so it kind of levels out. But this Northwestern State team is not a very defensive-minded team, but they do a pretty good job on offense. They do a great job of hitting the offensive boards and not turning it over. And they actually, on the defensive end, they're not the greatest thing in the world, but they rank only 3 spots behind Texas A&M in opponent turnover percentage. So it's going to be relatively even in the turnover thing. So I don't think A&M is going to get a lot of extra chances there. I think Northwestern State might actually end up with more chances with the way they rebound the ball. They've got a very, very good guard who is somebody to keep your eye on, and Marcus Sharp, averaging 16 a game, almost 4 assists a game, but he's hitting 55.6% for the threes, and he shoots a bunch. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch him. I think Texas A&M is going to have a hard time because they've got him and 2 other guards that are pretty good. I think Texas A&M has bit off a little more than they can chew here. Not that I think that Northwestern State wins, but I think this is be more like that 10-12, maybe even closer kind of game.
Kind of like the Creighton DePaul game that we just witnessed on Christmas, right? Home team's better team, but winning by a lot of points like that is not the easiest to do. There's a lot of ways it can go wrong. And even that game, Creighton hit a ton of threes and DePaul hit almost none, and they still couldn't cover it, right? So it's just one of those where it's like a lot of things have to go right to cover such a big number. When you're playing a competent team, when you're playing a bad team, that's not the case, right? But when you're playing a competent team, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but Northwestern State competent this year, they have the offense hanging. Absolutely, Texas A&M is going to have the edge on offense when they have the ball. And they should score pretty well against that Northwestern State defense. But Northwestern State has the offense to at least hang around and not get the doors blown off of them. In this one is what we expect to happen. Again, just one last thought on this real quick. The model's underestimated how good Northwestern State's been and overestimated Texas A&M. So again, I always say it's built to move slowly. So it might not even have caught. The model might still be playing catch up, which means maybe this number should be more like 14. Than 14.5, but 17 is a lot of points. The total in this one was about 149, opened up in that 150 area. If you had early access to projections, you saw that Sideline makes this total 145, and you got yourself a nice little under there, but it's already come down pretty handily in about that 146, 147 range. I already told the people over on the Discord to go ahead and grab that before it drops too low. Shop around and grab that number before it comes out at your shop Don't know where it'll be by the time you watch this, but if it does bounce back up, I do expect a lot of points, but an 150 range is just way too high. I think the move is a correct move, and I think it should stay more in the mid 140s. So again, some benefits having the early access to projection, seeing where the numbers should be, and you were able to get yourself a good under, hopefully before all the value was sucked out of it. Which takes us to the Jake on a Limb segment. It's a game that the model does not have an A grade play on. It has a B grade play on this, but Jake, it's an A grade in your book. 6 p.m. Central, Jacksonville +8 at Notre Dame. Sometimes says this should be a little bit under 7. Models back Notre Dame 6 times this year. 0-6 backing him, faded them 6 times, 4-2 fading him. That adds up to a 10-2 against the spread record for Notre Dame. Jacksonville has pushed a couple of games, played a couple Division II games, so not really a ton of ATS results really to speak of. But when you look at this, Jacksonville's kind of an average team, and Notre Dame only a little bit above average. That makes 8 kind of a stretch here, a big number to lay. Grabbing 8's always nice because that's, again, as we always talk about, 7 is around the key number where teams stop fouling, so getting 8. They stop fouling at 7, we get the win. Stop fouling at 8, we still get the push. Jake, why is this a good play in your book?
Yeah, like Notre Dame's pace and defense is really going to make this game tough on them. They're also playing some of their worst basketball right now, losing 3 straight, 4 of their last 5. I mean, this team is so offensive-minded and so dependent on a jump shot and so thin that they're just going to have a hard time beating average teams. And you're seeing that as they got into the conference play, and they've won 0-3 in conference. Both these teams play slow. Notre Dame's lack of ability to force turnovers will come back to haunt them big time in this game because there's not going to be any extra possessions because they rank dead last in D1 at only 12.4% of their opponent turnovers or opponent's possessions in turnovers. So that's just not going to help them out. They rebound the ball pretty well. But I think that has a lot to do with the long jump shots coming back at them. Both teams very good from the free throw line, so free throws are going to be a little bit of a thing. But I think we're getting 8 is a great number because that way we kind of avoid some of that late game fouling where it gets kind of pushes it over anything. I personally am going to sprinkle a little bit on the Jacksonville money line because I think Notre Dame is going to be a little bit of a tough spot. This Jacksonville team is pretty good for a mid-major team. Somebody to keep an eye on, but I really like the +8.
Yeah, I believe they're in the Atlantic Sun, a conference that I think they're the one with Bellarmine in it as well.
Yeah.
Other than Bellarmine, who just kind of came up out of nowhere here from their Division II jump up. I mean, a conference that's not really had a lot of depth, a lot of great teams, but like I said, just overall across the 360 whatever teams, about an average team in Jacksonville. Notre Dame's defense is surprisingly bad, and like you said, they're short relying on that jump shot. If that's not falling for them, they could absolutely lose this game, especially if it's a kind of lazy, holiday, no students in the crowd type game. Like we've seen a lot of these teams lose bye games at home. Just talked about A&M who lost one last week. Wouldn't shock me if they lost. Again, if you're ratioing out your wager on that, maybe 25%, 10 to 10%, 25%, something like that of your wager on the money line might not be a bad thing to pair with it, just in case Jacksonville can pull it off. But either way, grabbing 8 makes a lot of sense in this situation. The model wants a little bit more, a little bit bigger of a number on it before it gets to an A grade. Can it land? It can land 8, 9, somewhere like that. So it's just looking for a little bit more. But I think grabbing 8 makes a lot of sense.
Makes a ton of sense with the way Notre Dame can shoot the ball, and if that starts going, they can really make teams really pay for it. But I don't think they're quite going to get it right, especially with the pace here.
All right, and speaking of pace, it takes us to the total of the game. 7 p.m. Central, Texas A&M Commerce at Texas. Total in this one is shot up to 140. Sometimes says it should be about 137.5. We're going to go under that 140. The main thing here is that Texas has had a handful of games where they have just shot the lights out of the building, basically. And I think this total is getting a little bit inflated because I don't really think that's the performances that they can count on happening in the future. They should score a lot of points. A&M Commerce is terrible. But I'm going to count on them not scoring 100 again. It's obviously possible, but that's not a situation that you see often in college basketball. And so as long as Texas doesn't just shoot 60% or something crazy like that, which again, it's happened a few times, but in general, that's not what we expect to happen. Assuming that doesn't happen, I'm not sure Commerce, how many points they can score. It's not going to be many. This Texas defense is pretty nasty, and Texas A&M Commerce offense is very bad. So, I mean, Texas should run away with this one. There's a reason the spread is 28. The model leans Texas 28, but it says that it should be Texas minus 29, but it's just too big of a number for the model to really get behind. It's one of those where if it drops to 27, 26, something like that, that's where it gets more exciting to back Texas. And we've talked about this before, so maybe you've heard this. If so, just hit the fast forward like 15 seconds button. But if you haven't, it seems like it shouldn't matter up there with how many points there are. But because we don't expect Texas to win by 60, because that just seems very unlikely, and we don't expect Texas to only win by 5, all of that probability has to go somewhere. And so it does clump up in these 20s and 30s numbers, maybe not quite as much as it clumps up at the low numbers, but it still bulks up there. So every point is worth about another 3% or so. And so, it does feel a little bit like, 28, 29, 27, what's it matter? It kind of matters. And we've seen it so many times with some of these big spreads where these weird backdoor covers, teams stop playing. Once it gets up here, you just never know how it's going to happen. So every point of value, whether it's getting the best of the number or shopping around, I always recommend shopping around, can really matter. So Texas minus 27, the model's a little bit more behind that. It's an A grade play for sure if it falls to Texas minus 26, or if that's something you can get, again, assuming it's at minus 110. But a minus 28, the model says pass. I think under, though, makes a lot of sense. I just don't think Commerce scores very many points whatsoever in this game. Jake, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, like Commerce bad. They just dropped a game to IUPUI on a neutral floor, and they scored 52 total points. I mean, Texas has got a very good defense. I don't see them scoring hardly at all, so I think the under is a smart play. 28 is getting in that nervous range. Like, I'm with the model. I think I'm passing on this, like, just because there's too many ways it gets backdoored or something like that. And I'm just not where I'm going to put my money on such a very, very short slate. I'm going to probably, that's where my money on Jacksonville money line is going to go instead of trying to pick Texas here. But I think the under is a smart play because I really don't see Commerce scoring much. I mean, Lord, they can break 70 against Purdue Fort Wayne, or it's bad. And I think Texas is probably going to get so far ahead that they're going to quit playing and put the walk-ons in. So I don't see this game going over too much.
Yeah, it feels like an 85-50 type game where Texas just gets bored at the end, puts the walk-ons in, and I'm like, I don't see how Commerce scores that many points in this one. Of course, what that score sideline says 83-54. So again, somewhere in that ballpark, I think is kind of what we're expecting. And you may say, why is this only a C grade, and why we're a little bit more hesitant with Texas laying the exact same number that Texas Tech is laying, given that the model projects something similar? And I think really the answer to that has to do with the pace of play that the two opponents play at with regards to Commerce and South Carolina State. South Carolina State averages about 5 more possessions per game for each team than Commerce does. And those extra 5 possessions give us a lot of extra wiggle room with Tech. We think that it's going to be much easier for them to get out there to a bigger number because there's more possessions, whereas Texas A&M Commerce Texas with fewer possessions, it's not impossible. It's just a little bit harder to get outside of that bigger number. You need a lot more things to go right with this giant number like this. And with extra possessions, we just got a little bit more wiggle room with Tech than we do with Texas.
Yeah, and I mean, Texas starts conference play the game after this, so I don't know how much they're really going to want to punish this Commerce team in their first go at D1 this year.
All right, that takes us to the must-see TV game of the day, the last game on the slate. All 5 of them here we're covering. 7 p.m. Central, Seton Hall at Marquette. Marquette is laying 7. The model gives us an A grade at 7. Does not give it an A grade beyond 7.5 again. We always talk about 7's kind of that pivot spot with fouling, and so the model doesn't like it as an A grade at 7.5, but at 7, it's good with an A grade. Model's underestimated Marquette, been pretty spot on with Seton Hall, so it projects 7.7, but maybe it should actually be 8.5. Enough to back Marquette in this spot again at this number at home in a conference game. Jake, this one's your pick here. Why are you backing Marquette minus 7?
Look, I love Marquette, especially at home, the way they play, how Shaka gets that defense going. They're very good offensively, very fast, incredible at getting inside the arc. Tyler Kolick, I think is how you say his last name, is just amazing at distributing the ball. I think he's up around 8-9 assists a game. They've got just weapons all over the place. Their bodies, they're deep. Seton Hall can't quite figure out offense yet. They're a very good defensive team, just like almost right around the average point for offense. And like a lot of that is they just don't take good shots yet. Like their offense isn't quite working out for them. They rank very low for effective field goal percentage, especially for a Power 5 team. They turn the ball over a little bit too much. I mean, a lot of that, I think, is getting in a new offense, getting new players in, trying to figure all that out with Holloway. They'll get there. I just don't think this is the game they get it. I think this game hovers around that 10-point line, just with the turnovers that Marquette will force and being at home, they'll shoot a little better. So that's really Marquette at home. I'm pretty much going to take them no matter what it says.
Yeah, and again, we always talk about, right, you're playing teams and numbers, right? The number really matters here. Not that Marquette can't win by 10, but it becomes just extra value laying 7, having that push protection on 7. Obviously, they could win by 4, 5, 6, something like that. You could get backdoor on this, but just having that push protection on 7, just a little bit extra value. And it's one of those things where I always like to think of it as it's a little bit less about what happens in this one game and more about the totality of games. We're talking about 5,000 games in college basketball. And obviously you're probably not betting all 5,000 of them. That would be a little bit much, right? But, over the course of the season, especially with all those big Saturdays, all those games, you're probably betting on a lot of games in college basketball. And the difference between a winning and a losing season is only a couple of games out of every 100. And so it's one of those where may not matter here, but making sure we get 7. So shop around. There's some 7.5s out there too. Make sure you shop around and get the 7. Hopefully it's still out by the time you're watching this. You get 6.5, 6, even better, right? Every little bit matters because it's one of those 1, 2, 3 games out of every 100. If that can swing, that can be the difference between either a losing season and a winning season, a break-even season and a profitable season. It could just get you that little extra bit. So I think the 7 here just is really important, knowing that is a very possible landing spot for this game. And a game that Marquette should win, and then we just don't know exactly with the backdoor. We don't know if they're going to be up 10. And a guy, Seton Hall, is going to jack up a 3 with 3 seconds left. We've seen this sort of stuff happen a lot. It seems like the last couple of weeks, right? So having that push protection on 7, it might not matter. It might matter.
They'll be up 9 and they got to jack up a 3. Is the way our luck is going.
That's the way it's seeming. And I always say, we'll have good variance, we'll have bad variance. It'll balance out in the long run. It's gotten a little bit more bad than good, it feels like, of late. But, that'll balance out for us. But, maybe it'll be the other way. Maybe it'll be, 6 points, and then everyone will be walking off, and the Marquette guy will go up for a layup, and maybe we'll get lucky with that, right? Yeah. But every little bit matters here. And again, like I said, we think Marquette should win at home. You just don't know exactly where it's going to land as of late. So shopping around, just really important there. Jake, that's all we've got for the viewer today. Do you have any parting words?
No, I just can't wait for we get these games rolling again, more than 5 games at a time. I like having a full day, especially while you're off work here in the holidays and all that. Let's get a full day. Let's get some afternoon basketball going again.
And I think we talked about this specifically last week, right? And I think you saw it exactly with the picks that we had on show here. But on the 23rd and the 25th, there were not very many games. On the 23rd, went terrible, had some bad luck. 25th, went 4-1. And that same sort of thing. It's like when you have just fewer games, it feels like every game matters a lot more than it really should, right? You shouldn't, my 2 cents, look, take what you like and leave the rest, right? But my 2 cents is, you shouldn't just put more on a game because there's fewer games out there, right? So it shouldn't really matter, but it feels that way. It feels like when you got 5 games that one win means a whole lot more than it should. It's much more fun when there's 40 games. You can pick out 10 to 20 of them that you like, put them in. And then at that point, kind of seeing one game, it's like, okay, we'll get some good luck in a different game, right? 5 games, it's like, there's not another game to get good luck in, right? If you had SMU money line last night, that was it. You're like, well, that's it. There's 5 games. I had my bad luck. And then there's no way to bounce back because there's only 5 games,
That hurt. If you're on the money line, I'm sorry. That hurt.
Yep. Yeah. Thoughts and prayers if you had the SMU money line. Brutal loss there in that one. All right, well, thanks y'all for tuning into this episode of Picks the Professor. Don't forget to subscribe so you can share all this worth content we provide on this channel. It's dropped right into your feed. We'll be back again tomorrow with more college basketball betting content. Got college football bowl betting content. Been on a roll over there, so make sure you check that out if you haven't yet. But until we see you again, as always, best of luck, and remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.